Good. Okay. All right. So we're out of in camera. Can I get a motion to receive the report and verbal update provided from the CAO for information? Councillor Wagner, seconded by Councillor Buffett. All in favor? That's carried. Now, it was prior to 9:30 when we went in camera. It's now significantly later than that. Can I get a motion to sit past 9:30? Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Fegan. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next up is CAO report 2021-06 regarding the inclusion of Shelburne letter signage at the Jack Downing Park.
So I'll do this very quickly for the sake of time. You had asked us to follow up with the design potential locations with the inclusion of letters at a much smaller height than the Toronto letters, which are approximately 10 feet, and we use 3 and 5. Included in the appendices are 5 options where we've shown the placement of the letters across Main, across William, and then on the 2 arches in the corners, as well as replicating Town of West Lincoln, Smithville's sign, which had their town name at the base of a flagpole in Appendix 5. Or sorry, option 5. We also confirmed, and I'll confirm that we on Sunday got the prices from the firm that manufactures the Toronto letters. We looked at the Collingwood Seawood, which was, they are wood, and they were approximately $2,500, and they were lit with internal, I guess, holes drilled in. And we've estimated with the price of wood and going forward, they'll be much more expensive today. We're aware that obviously from the last report that Toronto's were $760,000. Ottawa was about $150,000. Most recently, and I think tonight it was before their council, Barrie was looking at solid letters, not illuminated, but steel in one of their waterfront parks. That was about $250,000 or $200,000. And it was estimated to be $15,000 a year for maintenance. We did receive on Sunday the firm that manufactured Toronto, even 5-foot letters would be well over $250,000 illuminated, and then plus a $20,000 delivery charge for that and installation. So as you can see from the layouts, it might be viable to put the letters facing Main or facing William. If they were within the park on the arch, it would have impacts potentially on the placement of the gazebo and other park features. I'm recommending that any continued assessment for the letters, knowing that the costs are quite significant, be deferred to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and not included at this time in Jack Downing Park, not only for the placement, but for the estimated costs that we're looking at. However, we have outlined that the existing reserve that was established in 2021, there would be about $47,000 remaining that could be realigned for letters up to that cost if council would like that direction to be moved forward with. Hopefully that's enough. Sorry for being very quick.
Oh, that's fine. So staff recommendation is essentially that this item be deferred more or less until after the Parks Master Plan. There is a notice of motion from the last meeting that Councillor Fegan had tabled, which comes later in the agenda somewhat awkwardly, but that's just the way it is, which essentially calls for this item just to be removed from any further discussion. So I guess, technically there are 3 options we have tonight. We can defer it till the Parks Master Plan. We can scrap it now in accordance with Councillor Fegan's notice of motion, or we can pick one of the options and make a decision tonight to move ahead. Deputy Mayor, did I see your hand there?
Yeah, please, thank you. Look, if it's going to cost what the City of Toronto and some of these other numbers that were proposed, then heck, I'd agree with Councillor Fegan and scrap this like immediately. But I don't think that's what we had in mind when we proposed this. I think it's more in line with the cost of Collingwood, which I think the quote was $2,500 because they used wood and inserted some lights, if that was the cost that I heard our CEO say. And yes, wood is going to be a little bit more expensive. And even if we double that, okay, so instead of $2,500, it's $5,000. And I think and it looks great. I mean, I drove to Collingwood the other day and it looks fantastic. So one thing that we have noticed just in the report itself is a number of municipalities moving forward with this project. Now, some of them obviously with bigger dollar signs than we could ever dream of, but they clearly see the value in having something like this in their town and what it means. And so I wouldn't want to see it scrapped at the Collingwood cost. And if we could place it somewhere else, then let's do that. But I don't think at the Collingwood cost, we have to defer this under the park management plan if it's the Collingwood sort of similarity that we're trying to achieve. So if that's where we're going, and I think that's where we should be going, then I wouldn't want to see it scrapped or deferred.
Councillor Fegan, and then Councillor Bernardo, and then Councillor Buffett.
No offense, Deputy Mayor Anderson, but the Collingwood sign, I don't like at all. It is not something I find attractive whatsoever to start with. Second, the fact that it's made out of wood, the longevity out of that sign is going to be significantly decreased versus an acrylic or a cement sign. Spending that kind of money on something that's going to need to be replaced within 5 years' time. Actually, it was 5 years for Toronto, was it not? It was a very short period of time. Denise, do you happen to remember what the time frame was?
Sorry, I think that they originally put their first one in for Pan Am, and I'd have to look back on when they put the first one in, then replaced it. But
Okay,
I think it was at least 10 years before they had to deal with.
okay, and that's based on an acrylic sign made out of aluminum. Wood is not going to last anywhere near that length of time. You're looking at half or less. So even if we spent that kind of money, we're looking at replacing this 2.5, 5 years time at best. The size of the sign, even at the 5-foot letters, based on the layouts that we had here for Jack Downing Park, it's going to cover anything and everything that we do for that park. On the Heritage Committee, we've got a couple of projects that we're already working on that are going to be started this year, with the murals going up on the wall right there. That is going to be a complete waste of time and money. If we put the sign up there, either on William or on Main, it will completely cover the sightlines for those murals and defeat the purpose of it. The gazebo as well will be completely covered, no matter where we put those based on these layouts. It just does not fit what we're trying to put together for the downtown core. Personally, and the last point that I want to make is, and everybody keeps bringing up, that it's going to be a tourist attraction. I'm sorry, where these signs already are, they're very large cities. They're already tourist cities. They already have a tourist attraction that brings people to their town. To have the idea that if we build a sign, that's going to bring people to town just to take a picture with it, I'm sorry, that makes no sense whatsoever. So that's my 2 cents. That's why I still don't see the value behind this. I still stand behind the idea that it's not worth pursuing at this point.
Okay, Councillor Bernardo.
I hate to disagree with fellow councillor, but I'm going to totally disagree with one. Okay, number one. Yes, they're tourist cities. Why are they tourist cities? Because they do things to bring tourists in. Signs, whatever, okay? Why do other municipalities start putting up signs? Because they want to bring tourists in. Why do we want to put it at Jack Downing Park? Because we want to bring them into the downtown core. We want people to stop there. And if they're going to cover a mural, then damn it, that mural must be damn low to the ground. If they're going to cover a gazebo, it must be a hell of a small gazebo, because, 5 feet does not cover a total gazebo, nor does it cover a total mural. Okay, that's part of my 2 cents. Now to continue on. Okay, we don't have to have the taxpayers pay for it. We're fundraising for splash pad. We can fundraise for a sign, we can fundraise for a gazebo, and as the mayor pointed out a while back, we were looking at getting sponsorship money for Jack Downing Park. The $20,000 was just a starter fund going in there. I know the mayor has been pursuing for some sponsorships. The sign can be part of that sponsorship. So I don't mind putting it into the master park plan. I don't mind waiting, but I'd like to put something in there. And I do agree with one thing you just said about something being more permanent. And it doesn't have to be 5 feet. 3 feet is fine. Okay, does not have to be a large sign. It has to be a sign that sort of speaks about our town, whether it's S, burn, or whatever way you want to put it, and facing the main street. Have to be the full wordage. But a 3-foot sign's fine. Okay, just something that's there that stops people and attracts them in. And it has to be something that's attractive that fits within the park. So put it into the master park plan. Let's put some thought into it. Let's do it right. That's all my comments for tonight.
Okay, Councillor Buffett.
Well, I think this is probably one of the issues where we have varying views from council on as far as the signs go. As far as having letters for a sign in general, I don't have a problem with that, whether it be at, at the entranceway to the town coming in, that's fine. But as far as Jack Downing Park goes, I don't care if it was free to put these letters in that park. I totally disagree with doing that because there's way too much going on in that park when we get everything done that we're supposed to be doing. So to do that and add letters in there on top of that, like to say, oh, we need that so we can tell people where Shelburne is. They know where Shelburne is because when they come into the entrance, that's when they find out that they're in Shelburne. Then they get downtown and they don't have to find a sign downtown because they're stuck in traffic looking at it because they can't move. So what's the point of having the sign there? Like, I'm sorry, that's something I really have an issue with. And to get back to what Kyle said, again, looking at our Heritage Committee that we're all working on now, Lindsay, Kyle and myself, with the mural that's going on that wall and all the work that's being done in that park, that's going to be a very attractive park all by itself without any letters going anywhere. And that's what we need to focus on. That is what makes what will make the downtown very attractive. This will just clutter it up. So sorry, Walter, but I think the letters should be somewhere else if we do get them. But I'm not in support of having it downtown.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so I think what I'll do, we do have a recommended motion embedded in the agenda, which essentially suggests that it be referred to the Parks and Rec master plan. Why don't we give that one a shot first, see if there's any support for that. If there is or there isn't, that'll probably then inform what we do with Councillor Fegan's notice of motion. So the motion that's contained in the agenda, which simply receives the staff report and refers the issue of the signage to the Parks and Rec master plan. Is there a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Bernardo is moving it. Councillor Wagner will second it. All in favor? Okay, all opposed?
You have the
So
final
three. Okay, so I will vote in the affirmative on that one to put it to the Parks and Rec master plan, and then at least, I guess let it live for another day to see if there's another place for it. Okay, and we'll go from there. So that motion carries. Okay, 10:48. So the next report is report from Jim regarding the dedicated generator at Town Hall, which is a timely report given the power outage today.
Yes, through your worship, with our 2021 budget, council did approve a dedicated standby power for the town hall. Town hall is our emergency operations center, so consistent power is essential. Not to mention for our fire suppression system over a number of hours will decrease if we don't have that standby power as well, and could trigger off. So we did put out quotes for that and standing with our purchasing policy. We found when we got these quotes back early in the new year that equipment and electrical has taken a sufficient jump in cost since we last quoted for our 2021 budget in the summer of 2020. We did receive 3 quotes back, and they do include our portion of the non-recoverable HST. The quotes range from $132,761.62 to just under $187,000. They're shown in Appendix 1. So this does leave us a shortfall of $42,761.72 that we would have to subsidize to move forward with this project this year. Nez Electric was the lowest quote on that, so staff would recommend awarding it to them. In consultation with Carrie, it suggested that the funds be taken from the town hall reserve, and consultations were with our supervisor of buildings and facilities, director of financial services, treasury, and this project would align with council's strategic priorities, target 3 for invest in critical infrastructure, as well as target 5 for improved technology. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim on this? Okay. If not, can I get a motion then to receive the report and authorize staff to move forward with the purchase and installation of the generator through Nez Electric, using funds from Town Hall Reserve to cover the deficiency? Moved by Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Fegan. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next is Councillor Fegan's motion, which I guess is a bit of a moot point now. We can literally go through the motion and vote on it, or
I'll just withdraw.
okay. Okay, next up is one of Deputy Mayor Anderson's 2 notices of motion. So the first reads that the funds to conduct the diversity audit, which will review the town's policies and procedures, be funded by other means and not from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee budget. If memory serves, I believe Councillor Wagner had offered to second that motion at the last meeting. Okay. Deputy Mayor Anderson, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. Well, I mean, it's self-explanatory. Thanks. It speaks for itself. In the interest of time, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, Councillor Wagner.
Yeah, thanks so much. We kind of sort of threw out our reasonings last meeting there as to why, Deputy Anderson put this forward. So I'm pretty sure everyone remembers what we said.
Okay, just one question for the treasurer. If it's not coming from that committee's budget, where would we draw?
Well, we haven't figured that out yet. We were hoping that we could come back with a report to council with a suggestion. It would have to come from a reserve, but I'm not sure what reserve you would want to pull it from. So we'd like to give some options.
Okay, Denise.
So what we have to do is also provide you with an estimate based on the scope of work, and we would have to review what other municipalities have paid. I'll suggest, just based on the preliminary information that I collected, that this could be between $40,000 and $100,000.
Yeah. I mean, is it something that is better suited to be included as part of 2022 budget?
I think we would outline that for you based on funding sources. And I know that on the DEI committee this week, that the new chair is going to speak to gap analysis as an alternative, which is a lower cost, as a first step potentially, as something that might be considered. I think the county is also doing a DEI audit. So we certainly can ask them what they're committing in terms of their project scope, recognizing they're such a larger organization than us. But DEI consultants are very specialized, and a number of firms have implemented teams and complete sections for audit. So we just need to follow up so that you have an understanding of those costs. And you may recommend that it might be a 2022 and then include it in that draft.
Right, so Deputy Mayor Anderson, I mean, at this point, are you more or less just looking for clarity so that the committee can go ahead and make other expenditures with the money that's been allocated to it? And we can sort out funding for this particular audit at a later date?
Yeah, and I think just to sort of point out, like, I don't think we imagined that this had to be conducted like next week, right? I mean, we're just starting to get things underway. So if this is something that has to be done next year, and hopefully the costs are not as high as being suggested, but in any event, if it could be rolled over into next year, I think that would be more than adequate. So, but yeah, that's fine. It's just to allow the committee with what is there. It sounds like a lot, but sometimes when you engage in some of the initiatives, like for example, the D&I training that is going to be needed for this committee is probably going to take up a chunk of the budget that is there. So imagine trying to throw in now a diversity audit with that very same budget doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So anyways, I agree with your approach. Let's move forward with that.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, the second is a motion that reads that be it resolved that the land acknowledgement be amended to include the Haudenosaunee Group. Deputy Mayor Anderson, or sorry, first, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Fegan. Okay, Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the things that I learned, especially after the 215 bodies were found, is a greater understanding of our Indigenous history right here in the county of Dufferin, and particularly in Shelburne. The Haudenosaunee, oh my God. Anyways, you know what's there. I have to practice that in all seriousness, but they are a part, from what I've learned in speaking with others, and Debbie from the resource circle as well, and speaking to the elder that presided over the ceremony. They are an instrumental group within the area itself. And I thought this would be a nice gesture to add them to the current land acknowledgement, recognizing their presence here in our community. And that's all it's about.
Okay. The only question I had, and I mean, by all means, you know, if it's culturally and historically and geographically appropriate to include them, then I'm in favor of that. It's just, you know, we had gone through a fair bit of consultation and development of our original statement. Are we sure that this is accurate?
So it's a really good question, and we could defer this. I spoke to, again, typically what we would do, and the county would do this as well, is, and I'm not saying that the Dufferin Cultural Resource Circle is the end all be all, right? But typically the county would use them as a resource to say, hey, listen, here's what we're doing. What are your thoughts? Could we get approval? Because they have connections with elders in the area. And so I also looked at the Haldimand Tract, right? And this particular indigenous group is part of that Haldimand Tract that instituted this moratorium to say they want the development to stop, which includes, at least as we know right now, the west side of Shelburne. At least this is what the county has confirmed, and others. And I know that Steve is supposed to come back and let us know with a little bit more precision and certainty. And so that's what I was thinking. But I have no issue, just to your point, because we want to make sure that we get it absolutely right, that we could consult with other individuals or other groups just to make absolutely sure. And then at that point, we could revisit this. So I have no problem taking it off the table for now, or I don't know if we need to take it off the table, but.
I was actually just going to suggest a friendly amendment that we ask staff to do some consultation and report back on it.
Sure, that's fine. That's totally fine.
Councillor Fegan, are you okay with that? A second.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We got to make sure that we're doing this 100% correct.
Okay.
You know, I just have a thought, and I may, at the D&I committee, we do have, I think it's Jonathan who represents the Indigenous community as well. And so maybe this, you know, I don't know if Councillor Wagner and Councillor Fegan feel that it may be appropriate just to bring this up during that meeting just to get some feedback. And then we could circle back to council with respect to any any feedback we were able to get from either him or the committee as a whole. To supplement what staff will do.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that? All in favor? It's carried. Okay, I have 10:59 by my clock. We have 2 more items. I know our procedural bylaw says we will not sit past 11, but I think if we're all unanimous in our intent to finish this off, then that'll save us having to add these on to the next agenda. Is everybody okay with just pushing ahead to finish off the last 2? Okay. All right, so the next one is consideration of the short-term business license for Spunky Spuds. Is there a mover and seconder for that, in support of that application? Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Fegan. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Carried. Okay, and the last actual item is a motion in support of a resolution that was passed at the last county council meeting. Mover and seconder for that motion in support. Councillor Fegan, seconded by Councillor Hall. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Carried. Okay, motions for this evening. Councillor Wagner, I understand you submitted one to the clerk. Does that have to be read into the record tonight, Jennifer?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay, you have it in front of you, Councillor Wagner?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Be it resolved that due to recent speeding concerns within the community, the data collected from the speed signs to be reported to council, and the knowledge of this street being widely utilized by the community, especially the community's children, and keeping with providing public safety, council directs town staff to purchase and install temporary speed humps for an initial location of Greenwood Avenue in both the north and south traveling direction, to be accompanied by required signage. And furthermore, a speed sign to be reinstalled on Greenwood after installation of the temporary speed humps, to gather information for a comparison of speeds pre and post installation, to be reported to council at a later date for review of any benefits in order to continue with installing speed humps elsewhere in town where identified as required from town staff's traffic speeding enforcement options report. And furthermore, in order to install immediately, funding be taken from the capital reserve.
Okay, so we'll consider that at the next meeting. Deputy Mayor Anderson.
I have one that I submitted to the clerk as well, so I'll just read it briefly. This is a follow-up to my question that I asked Steve with respect to the sidewalk. And it reads very quickly that staff investigate and report to council the cost of implementing a sidewalk along 124 from the Fieldgate subdivision to, I refer to it as the Lakeview subdivision, and the options to cover that said cost. And I think I may have missed to report back to council in October, at least with some preliminary findings. It doesn't have to be anything full, but at least some preliminary findings as to this particular option.
Okay. Any other notices of motion?
If I may just lastly just say, I should have said this earlier, and then I'll close, is I had the good pleasure to do the ribbon cutting ceremony with Councillor Webner at the Shelburne Farmers Markets, excuse me. And based on the feedback on social media, people were really pleased that it had opened. I know that Councillor Webner had purchased a few items and I didn't have my wallet with me, which was unfortunate, but it is what it is. But they're open on the 24th, I believe. Councillor Wegner, correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're next open on the 24th, Thursday, from 3 to 8 p.m. Thank you.
Great. All right, communications. There's 8 items there listed. Is there anything anybody wants to deal with? Okay, can I get a motion then to receive those items for information? Councillor Buffett, second by Councillor Hall. All in favor? It's carried. And, confirming bylaw, mover and seconder. Councillor Hall, seconded by Councillor Bernardo. All in favor? It's carried. And a motion to adjourn at 11:04. Pretty close. Councillor Bernardo, seconded by Councillor Fegan. All in favor? carried. All right. Thank you all.
Good room.
Officially